New revelations about the Chesapeake, Virginia shooter and new interviews about the Colorado shooter cast out and put both of those shootings into the center of the culture war. So we'll be talking about that and what that means and where we go from there. In other news, a grand jury finds numerous instances of ballot fraud in a New York City council race. So, that thing that we are assured never ever happens, well, I'm not going to say that it's happened on a wider scope, but I'm going to say that this means that I have some more questions, but we'll talk about that and what that means and where we go. The Georgia Supreme Court denies a law allowing for early voting. So we'll be talking about what that means for the Georgia race and what's going to happen with that. And senators and representatives are in a panic in Washington over a Chinese drone spying threat after Chinese drones are seen flying over the Capitol. It is going to be all this and more, plus what you are thankful for. I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. So, we've got a smaller than normal news plate today, which is good, by the way. I'm very happy about that. Because, well, I didn't want to spend all day yelling about what's happening in Washington, D.C., because those people suck. They really do. And now we're sitting here having a fight over whether or not it was appropriate for Biden's granddaughter to get married on the White House lawn. There are bigger things to fight about right now. We shouldn't be doing it today, though, but we'll be talking about that. One of the things that's interesting about the Thanksgiving holiday today is the fact that the Biden admin did have to put out a script for you to use if you happen to be to the left of the center and going to see your very conservative relatives. So, I mean, they're not even trying to hide the fact that they're trying to build a culture war. They want animosity, brother against brother, and a whole host of other things, and we are better than that. I will be, or unfortunately, probably one of the last times be spending Thanksgiving alone. But because of where I'm moving to, this is probably going to be a thing of the past after this year. And, you know, if I wasn't moving in 2 days, I wouldn't be either. But, you know, there is that aspect of things too. So, anyway, my name is Jay Edgar. This is Contemporary. I would do a little bit different here today, especially because we have a light plate of news. So, if we do get some people in here, and I do hope that we do, then anything that is, any live chat that's about something you're thankful for will get read on air. I have the live chat up. I will have it up on the screen as we go as well. If I don't get it immediately, I'll be glancing over there and looking at it and checking it out. But yeah, we need to have some community, and we still have a small enough community that I can at points come in here and look into some of this stuff. So yes, we will interrupt the news for what you are thankful for, and I hope that we get a lot of white pills off of this. I really do. I hope we get at least a few people in here. I do hope that if you are with family and you've got the day off, you're spending more time with family than sitting here checking out the news. But if you would like to check out the news, I want to give back to you as well. So that is the new rule off the day. Yeah, anything, anytime, anywhere that we see something about what you're thankful for, that gets priority. So we'll see what's happening with that, and we will see what you guys are thankful for. But we do have news to get into because, well, they're morons in DC, and the news stops for nobody. So let's get into it. Let's get started. Before we do, make sure you guys go check out great programming such as The Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, The R-Rated Conservative, The Porch Boys, Tweets by Brit, Overruled with KTZed, Mr. Behavior, PJ Patriot, and the No Gimmicks podcast. Go check out all of that great programming as we try to build a coalition of people who would like to bring you news from the common man for the common man. People who have had to make some of the same decisions you have, instead of people who wear suits that cost more than your house. So, with that being said, let's look into what we do have on the news today, and let's get started. Looking at the finance for yesterday, when will be somewhat abbreviated on this as well, because these markets are not going to move now until Monday, and as has been mentioned, there is no show on Monday. We probably won't get back in until, I would say, the second week of December, once I have a good solid plan as to when I can set my time slot and where to go. So let's get the live chat up here. Arvold says, I'm thankful that I see a large population online unafraid to be white-pilled. It keeps my natural black pill at bay. Yeah, well, we gotta look out to the positive of life. We definitely do. There's so much out there. There is still so much. As much as the news, our politicians, Hollywood, and everybody else want you to feel hopeless, want you to feel like there's nothing else out there. There is a lot to be thankful for. There's a lot to be positive about. All right. Looking at the Dow is at 34,194.06. That is up 95.96, or about 0.25% yesterday. It spent, it was an up day and then a down day, and then it did wind up closing back up. But there are a lot of factors that are weighing on the Dow right now, and retail sales with Christmas coming up are going to be some of the big things off of this. I know that I see a lot of stuff out there that there's a t-shirt over there that I really want. I want to get for myself for Christmas, and I am frugal, and when it is coming down to a time where I've got to make an unexpected expense, I do cut off all expenses. I really do. So even the $13 is not something for me, but I've had the Warren Zevon song Werewolves in London in my head for quite a while, and I found a t-shirt advertising for Lee Ho Fook's in 1978 with the werewolf on it. Come and taste our beef chow mein. But that will not be coming until after I move, so you might see that up on Contemporary at some point. That's awesome, by the way. I like that. I like that a lot. But that's what the Dow is doing for us right now. Looking at your Bitcoin, which is live. The Dow, again, will not move. None of the markets will move now. Actually, I do think they have a brief trading day on Friday, now that I think about it. But it's an abbreviated one. I think they start late and close early. Looking at the Bitcoin, which will be moving because it's a global market, and we are not the only ones, or we are rather the only ones who celebrate Thanksgiving on the last Thursday in November. But Bitcoin is at 16,535.90 as of today, and that has taken a significant upswing and then tumbled out through the rest of the trading day, bringing us out to 5 days and seeing what it did yesterday. It looks like it held somewhat steady, kind of wild and whipsaw, but coming back to the same point as where it was before. And just this big sink here is the only thing to worry about, but that was from the day before. So that's what we see coming off the Bitcoin. Gas prices in the Madison area are holding steady right now. I was kind of expecting to see a little bit of a drop in the area here, but we are seeing 320 on the Quick Trip on the west side, 330 on the east side, 320 coming out of town at the BP on the north at 113, 340 going out of town on the Beltline, and 340 coming out to the west side of the Speedway on the Beltline as well. So pretty steady to where we've got, we haven't seen really any changes here. I will be continuing to watch this and see what happens with this and where it goes, because I do anticipate a significant rise in gas prices over the next 2 or 3 months. So we will see what happens with that and where we go. Let's look at IBD for the morning. From Investors Business Daily, why the market rally could use a holiday. Tesla rebounds, 5 stocks near buy points. From Ed Carson. Dow futures rose slightly Thursday morning along with the S&P and the Nasdaq, with U.S. markets closed for Thanksgiving Day holiday. The stock market rally was positive for a second straight session on Wednesday. Fed officials see slower rate hikes coming soon, according to Fed minutes from the November meeting released Wednesday afternoon. The Nasdaq led, buoyed by a rebounding Tesla. The major indices are all up solidly so far in this holiday-shortened week, but a longer holiday for the market rally could be constructive. Investors should be cautious about adding exposure, given key technical resistance and notable economic reports up ahead. However, Dexcom, United Health, Neurocrine Biosciences, MedPace Holdings, Shockwave Medical, and are 5 healthcare stocks showing interesting action. Dexcom and Neurocrine Biosciences are on the IBD leaderboard, with MedPace Holdings on the leaderboard watch list. Neurocrine Biosciences and MedPace are on the IBD 50. On the futures, Dow futures edged higher versus fair value. The S&P went up 0.15 and the Nasdaq climbed 0.3. Mainland China reported more than 31,000 Pinkko-pox cases, including those without symptoms, topping the mid-April levels during the Shanghai lockdown. COVID infections with symptoms are still below April peaks. U.S. stock exchanges will be closed Thursday for the Thanksgiving holiday. On Friday, U.S. exchanges will close early at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, but other exchanges around the world are open normally on Thursday and Friday. And remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. So what we see now is frozen, but it looks like the futures are already playing. We'll see what happens with this, the China thing. Because this is how it all started for us the first time back in 2020. And it does make me a little bit wary that we're going to start seeing this coming in specifically for 2024. 31,000 cases coming up here, including asymptomatic cases. Realistically, I mean, the question comes out is how many asymptomatics were false positive? And I know that we probably shouldn't be saying that on YouTube, but I have no faith in our government to not try to hold on to power as tightly as they can. So I am glad that IBD does keep a focus on what we have for COVID cases in China, because, yeah, that's going to export itself to the rest of the world. We'll continue to watch this and see what happens with this. I do want to grab one from CNBC. From CNBC, some market players are starting to fear a major policy error from a central bank. From Elliott Smith. The U.S. Federal Reserve last week struck a hawkish tone on combating inflation via monetary policy, but analysts are concerned about the potential threat of its persisting tightening strategy. Fed Chair Jerome Powell warned the U.S. economy will face some pain as the central bank continues raising interest rates aggressively, prompting markets to sell off once again on the increased prospect of a recession. Markets around the world sold off amid the apparent confirmation that monetary policy tightening is being front-loaded, likely exacerbating the risk of recession as policymakers focus on the Fed funds rate as its key inflation-fighting tool. I don't know why they're speculating about this. Jerome Powell literally came out and said we need to have a recession to keep ourselves out of the inflation. He actually said those words, specifically, deliberately. However, in a research note Tuesday, analysts at London-based Cross-Border Capital argued that quantitative liquidity dimension is being overlooked, with the Fed's balance sheet reduction or quantitative tightening having an asymmetric impact on the economy. The Fed sees quantitative tightening, quantitative easing, like an air conditioning unit whirring in the background, but we see quantitative tightening as a wrecking ball that will ultimately reverse into another quantitative easing, CEO Michael Howell said in a note. Cross-Border warned ahead of Powell's Jackson Hole, Wyoming speech, wow, that was a while ago, that the risk was growing of a major upcoming policy error from the Fed's course of action, specifically the impact of excessive quantitative tightening on financial stability. Quantitative tightening is a monetary policy tactic used by central banks to reduce liquidity and contract their balance sheets, usually by selling government bonds or allowing them to mature and moving them off the bank's cash balances. Cross-Border Capital believes the central banks are sucking too much liquidity out of financial markets too quickly, and Howell pointed to a recent hawkish shift by some European central bank policymakers, which he said may trigger euro instability and eventually a liquidity pivot from the central banks in 2023. Our concern is that quantitative easing or quantitative tightening have outsized effects on financial stability, with the proposed near one-third Fed balance sheet contractions equivalent to around 5 percentage points added to Fed funds, Howell said. At some stage in 2023, the Fed will be forced to pivot towards getting its balance sheet up again and the US dollar down. Until that point is reached, the next few months will see greater quantitative tightening. This should spook markets. The concern about quantitative tightening was echoed by Mazars' chief economist George Lagarius, who urged traders and investors to forget what they heard from Powell and Jackson Hole, instead focus on Fed assets as a single leading indicator. The Fed is increasing its quantitative tightening cap from $45 billion to $95 billion. Meanwhile, in September, the ECB is ending its quantitative easing, albeit with a program in place to limit fragmentation between borrowing rates in heavily indebted and less indebted member states. Will the Fed's cap increase siphon money from markets at a fast pace? Its true intentions will be shown in that field, not in policy speeches, Lagarius said on Tuesday. Meanwhile, investors should worry about the longer-term implications of the Fed stance. The slowdown could become a deep recession. Inflation could turn into deflation. And that's what they're trying to do with that. I don't understand why CNBC right now is coming out here trying to say that we had no idea that they were doing this and this might be a mistake. They said that they were going to do it. And I said at the beginning, the point is to get you out of the market. The government at the time was still intent on fire hosing money into the economy. But the point was to stop you from buying a new car, buying a new house, starting a business, employing more people. Because they need to get the spending cap and the fire hose of cash under control in order to keep the inflation down. Now, with this being said, one of the things that we're going to see is, yes, we are going to see a deep recession. We might even get to a depression at this point. But this will deflate the economy, deflate the currency at 1.2. The other side of this, and this is the important part, is with the change in Congress, we will have to see what's going to happen and who's going to stay stalwart on the spending stops and who's going to basically chicken out once they start to hardball the administration when it comes to spending and continuing resolutions. When we have the omnibus bills, the best thing for the American people would be for McCarthy's coalition to come together and say, hey, no, we're not going to do this. Bring us a balanced budget. We won't vote on any omnibus package. I have little faith in the fact that that's actually going to happen. I do. But some of the things, and the big one is the fight off of this. And I don't usually advocate for 4chan. To be completely honest, they frighten me. But I've always enjoyed the fact that when we do get a massive omnibus like we've had in the past, they do go through and they dig out every single line of the omnibus and tell us exactly what's in it. It was the same thing with the COVID relief package. It was the same thing with the second COVID relief package. What was the other one? The infrastructure package. They went through and they found all the handouts that went out to other countries. All the handouts that went to the people. All the handouts that went back to the government. And when you can go and spread it across millions of people, they can go through it line by line a lot faster than 530 or 435 representatives can go through it. So I'd like to see a stop to some of this, to some of the spending, because I know that will push the Fed to drop the interest rate and get the economy coming from the consumer side rather than the government side. But that's what we see coming off of that. Let's get down into the main news of the day. And I want to start here with this one here from Herbie Ziskind. Sitting next to your uncle at Thanksgiving. Need a cheat sheet on the president's accomplishments? We got you covered. Yeah, as if your uncle, your MAGA uncle, isn't sitting there and has all of his talking points memorized. The fact that you need a cheat sheet, that is full of lies, by the way, I've gone through this already, tells me that, yeah, the Biden admin is not pulling up its end of the deal, and it's not going to be holding up its end of the deal to the blue hairs that actually want this to go and combat with their racist, MAGA conservative uncle. But let's go down with the cheat sheet here. President Biden's top accomplishments for when chatting with your uncle at Thanksgiving. Number 1, tackling inflation and lowering costs. Gas prices are down by $1.35 a gallon since June, and inflation is moderating. No, it actually is not moderating. It's just catching up to the inflation from the year before. When you're going on top of 6.3% inflation the year before, yes, your inflation rate is going to slow down or appear to slow down because you're inflating on top of inflation right now. And gas being down by $1.35 a gallon, woohoo, you're still up $1.58 a gallon from when Biden took office. Unsnarling supply chains to lower the cost of good in the midst of a threat of a rail shutdown that will cripple our economy. Thank you very much. Saving Americans with hearing loss up to $3,000 in hearing aids. Yeah, I do have to wonder what's going to happen with that as far as Medicare, Medicaid, and everything else goes, and how much of that gets passed on to the people. And tackling junk fees that cost Americans billions, like surprise overdraft charges. As far as I understand, that actually never went into law. Yeah, you got up and made a pretty speech about that, but... And furthermore, with that, like we said when that happened, all that's going to do is stifle out any small potato competitor that wants to come up and challenge the big boys, because Bank of America can write those fees off. Local Bank of Podunk, Arkansas cannot. Took on Big Pharma and won, lowering prescription drug and healthcare costs. Capping annual out-of-pocket prescription drug costs from at $2,000 for seniors on Medicare. Capping insulin copays at $35 per prescription, which is after you jack the price up by undoing an executive order from your predecessor. Expanding affordable high-speed internet for all Oh, that's infrastructure. I went to the next line down. Lowering health insurance premiums by $800 annually for Americans who buy insurance through the ACA. And screwing the rest of us because all the rest of our premiums went up. Let's see. Worked with Republicans to rebuild America's infrastructure. Rebuilding roads and bridges. Investing in passenger rail and public transit. I do see where we're rebuilding roads and bridges. But at what cost? I mean, we're sitting at 7.7% inflation on top of 6.2%. Investing in passenger rail and public transit. That should be a locality thing. That should not be a federal thing. Expanding affordable high-speed internet for all Americans. Again, the market will come in and put that in place if there's a demand for it. Removing all lead pipes ensures clean drinking water in all communities. Local. In fact, the only places that seem to have a problem with it are places that are run by your people. Worked with Republicans to make more in America by passing the CHIPS and Science Act. I like the fact that they're coming here and saying, worked with Republicans, and the bottom line is, meanwhile, Republicans are extreme! Investing in semiconductor and manufacturing and other advanced cutting-edge technologies here in America, which have yet to start in America. Creating good-paying jobs in manufacturing, again, have yet to start. In fact, the only people that have seemed to make more in America because of this are Nancy Pelosi and her friends in Congress. Brought together Republicans and Democrats to pass the first meaningful gun safety legislation in nearly 30 years. Yeah, it's unconstitutional. Removing firearms from dangerous individuals. I love that line. Immediately after a dangerous individual with felony arrests in a state with red flag laws got a long rifle, which everyone's trying to claim as an AR, and yet I've seen no confirmation to that, went into a gay club and started shooting. You're still going to come out here and try to say that you removed firearms from dangerous individuals. Expanding mental health services in schools in a bill that was loaded with pork and federal takeover. Supporting school safety and narrows the boyfriend loophole to keep guns out of the hands of convicted dating partners. Well, if that person is convicted, you shouldn't need the boyfriend loophole. Conviction is a felony, yo. Despite global challenges, we're making progress. 10 million jobs created. 10 million people return to work after you shut down their jobs. Unemployment near record lows. I'll give you that one. I'll give credit where credit's due. The unemployment near record lows. We're not quite back to where we were on unemployment with the Trump administration, but I'll give you that. Good job. Yes, there are some aspects on the side of that with the workforce participation, but anybody who seems to want a job right now has one. So I'll hand you that one. Unemployment for near record lows, including for Black and Hispanic Americans. More small businesses launching than ever before. No, they're not. That's the entire point of the Fed tightening, is to stop them from launching. Rally the world in defense of Ukraine in the face of Putin's aggression. Yes, put us in a proxy war. The same thing, by the way, my blue-haired niece. And that's hypothetical, by the way. I don't actually have a blue-haired niece, but that's hypothetical. You remember back under the Bush years when you used to protest against the proxy wars? I know, because I was standing next to people like you. Because I'm against them. I'm still against them. I was against them under Bush, and I'm against them under Biden. And no taxes on people making above $400,000. He kept his promise. I don't know if that was a typo or he said the quiet part out loud, because my taxes are going up. According to the new tax code, I am set to owe, it's a small amount, but I'm set to owe $300 more than last year, according to the tax code. No tax on people making above $400,000. Was that a typo, or was that an accidental, saying what's actually real? Jake Paul, Tiny Left Nut, says, can confirm, as a Republican, I want $100 a gallon gasoline. Well, I hope you don't get your way. Because I like driving. And I like driving gas-guzzling vehicles. I like racing. And now, again, we're going to scroll back up here to where we say, worked with Republicans to rebuild America's infrastructure. Meanwhile, Republicans in Congress are extreme, proposing a national ban on abortion, which is a lie. That didn't actually happen. One person proposed a national limitation at 15 weeks. And he got roundly rejected for it because the entire point of the Roe argument was that it was a states issue. Planning to put Medicare and Social Security on the chopping block. Yes, we do that every single election cycle. Republicans want to end Social Security. They want to end Social Security. We've been hearing this since Reagan, and probably before. It's never come to pass because Mitch McConnell is using it as his piggy bank just as much as Chuck Schumer is. Trying to raise costs on Americans by repealing the Inflation Reduction Act. Yeah, it's time for that to go away because, that is your Build Back Better agenda. Just with a different name. So, there you go. Everything on this list was a lie. Except for the historic unemployment low. Everything else on this was a lie. So, go ahead and take this. When your blue-haired niece comes out here, tread lightly if you live in a red flag state, because she will probably call. Once you debunk everything on this list, she will probably call and put you on a red flag list. So do tread carefully if you're in that. And now I replied to this one and says, you know what? Use this. Everything on here is a lie anyway. And Shorty the Corgi, who I also follow, leftists are truly miserable people preparing for the fight when we should be just preparing for some turkey and fellowship and family. For what it's worth, anecdotally, I find it's the leftists that start the argument. And Kristen Special K says, this is gaslighting. To which Abradak says, we can't afford gaslight in this economy. I like that. So, there you go. Deboomed. Jake Paul's Tiny Left Nut. The question that we have for you is, what are you thankful for this Thanksgiving? Here's a story that's about to disappear. Here's the shooter in the Walmart shooting. Devil with a death list. Pasilbiak tweets out, picture Walmart manager 31 who shot 6 coworkers dead in planned break room massacre as Virginia cops find death list of names next to his body. And we never heard about this one again. reading from the Daily Mail. Pictured Walmart manager 31 who shot 6 coworkers dead in planned break room massacre as Virginia cops find death list of names next to his body. Homie had a hit list. From Jennifer Smith, chief reporter, and Emma James in Chesapeake, Virginia for DailyMail.com. The Walmart gunman who opened fire in the break room of the Chesapeake store when he worked last night had a list of names of people he wished to target. Andre Bing, 31, opened fire in the break room of the Walmart in Sam's Circuit, Chesapeake, at 10:12 p.m. last night, where 14 employees had gathered for a pre-shift meeting. Bing's rampage killed 6 people in total, including a 16-year-old boy. In a press release on Wednesday, the city of Chesapeake identified 5 of the deceased victims as Lorenzo Gamble, Brian Pendleton, Kelly Pyle, Randall Blevins, and Tanika Johnson. The 6th deceased victim's name and photo was withheld due to his age, the city said. Yeah, you can't do that with a minor. Jake Paul's tiny left nut is thankful. I'll go with being in a better position in life than I've been in a while. Mazel tov. Officials urge citizens to join us in praying for the family and friends of those community members who we have lost. Earlier in the day, the city identified the shooter as Bing, saying he was armed with 1 handgun and had multiple magazines on his person. There were 50 people inside the store at the time, likely finishing some last-minute Thanksgiving errands. Bing opened fire in the break room at the back of the store. He then shot 10 people before killing himself. When police searched his body, they found a list of names that contained the names of the colleagues he wished to target, according to the local Virginia outlet Wavy, citing an anonymous source. So, cannot confirm this. Anonymous sources, of course. It is not yet clear if the victims were on the aforementioned list reportedly recorded by authorities. 2 of the victims were found next to Bing in the break room when police arrived. The 3rd was found at the front of the store. 3 others were taken to the hospital where they succumbed to their injuries. F. Big F's in the chat. I'll put one in there. 4 people are still in the hospital with unspecified injuries. Former colleagues today described Bing as weird and revealed that he was so paranoid about being watched by the government, he taped over the camera on his phone. Yeah, who would do a thing like that, I swear. Or disconnect the external microphone of his phone. Who would do a thing like that? We do have a shocking moment when the shooter laughs with coworkers on Facebook Live. Let's have a look at that.
Yeah. Remember that? It was nice. It was fun.
We were driving in the back.
We was driving in the back, and I was parking it and everything.
Must have been my day off.
Matter of fact, it's more fun than driving a car to me.
Facebook Live.
So, I mean, it looks like this was just a regular middle-class guy. Well, on a manager's salary, obviously. And something inside of him broke. It's the mental health, unfortunately. That's what it always is. It remains unclear if he legally owned his handgun. Yeah, that would change the narrative too, wouldn't it? Or the multiple rounds of ammunition he brought with him. Police say he was dressed in civilian clothing and was not wearing any kind of protective vest. Everyone called him weird. That was all anyone could say about Andre. Chandria Reese, who previously worked with him, told the New York Times, a former newspaper. She added that he had a nasty attitude, something other staff also complained about. He had an attitude. He was kind of aggressive. There were moments where he was okay, but he was definitely hard to work with and a little hostile, Nathan Sinclair, who also used to work with him, said. Man, it makes you wonder how he got into management. Every night, Bing hosted a meeting in the storeroom where he would assign tasks to the team for the night. He would typically then go home. He was the type of guy who said, "I go to work and I go home. I don't have a social life," Josh Johnson said. Walmart spokesperson told DailyMail.com the alleged shooter had been identified as Andre Bing. "We can confirm that he was a Walmart associate. Andre's position with the company was overnight team lead, and he's been employed with us since 2010. And by the way, I looked last night. I didn't look here today, but I didn't see if any of the big boys got anything. Of course, we took from the Daily Mail because that was linked in Pasobik's tweet. I'll look this guy up again one more time. Yeah, Fox News. Some of the other outlets are starting to show it now. Fox News has a picture of the shooter up on the front, but NBC, ABC, CNN, none of them have the guy pictured because this does go against the narrative. From CNN, an employee had a gun to her forehead, others ran for their lives. Witnesses described the Chesapeake Walmart shooting. From Elliot C. McLaughlin, Brian Todd, Paradise Afshar, and Christina Maxoris. Though Jessie Wolszewski had only been working at the Chesapeake Walmart for a few days, her Tuesday night shift started like all the rest, with a routine team meeting in the break room. But moments after the meeting began, Wolszewski found herself face-to-face with her team leader, who held a gun to her forehead after having shot her coworkers. She managed to escape and make it back to her 15-month-old, but she told CNN the night, and the sound of blood hitting the floor keeps replaying in her head. 6 of her colleagues, including a teenager, were killed in the massacre after the gunman, who Chesapeake city officials identified as 31-year-old Andre Bing, began indiscriminately firing into a room where employees had gathered for a meeting. According to a statement from Walmart, Bing was a team lead for the store's overnight shift and had been employed with the company since 2010. Police say he died from self-inflicted gunshot wound. It's horrible because it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop replaying when you leave the scene. It doesn't stop hurting as much. It doesn't stop, Wolszewski told CNN's Erica Hill Wednesday night after recounting the horrifying experience. Yeah, there's a reason that I don't go into inner city Chicago. Because it doesn't stop. Employees had just clocked in when gunfire erupted. Wolszewski told CNN she noticed the shooter shortly after 10 p.m. She was listening to another team lead speak before she turned her head towards the doorway and saw Bing standing with a gun pointed at the crowd. An image, she says, at first didn't register as real. But then she began to feel her chest vibrating and her ears ringing, and a stream of gunshots erupted. She said Wolszewski leapt under the table while the gunman walked off down a nearby hallway. "I didn't want to be loud. I didn't want him to hear me and make him mad and make him come back," Wolszewski told CNN. So, a lot of stuff going on with that too. It's a scary situation. And unfortunately, again, I do allege that I think that a lot of this is going to disappear. Just like a lot of what we're going to see coming from the Colorado Springs shooters, probably going to disappear too. Although, I will give this one, the fight over the culture war might keep this one in the news for at least a little while, even though, until something else comes up to swoop up and take it back out of the news. But, we don't know what they have in the works and what they have planned out to keep this out of the news. But the fact that so many people are fighting over this moron's pronouns does mean that we will keep talking about this one for a while. I do, as irrelevant as I think the argument over pronouns is for the Colorado Springs shooter, I am at least thankful for the fact that we might actually get to the bottom of this one at some point. Because of the culture war. Speaking of the pronouns, you guys, don't be triggered by this. We are about to see a hate crime. The Chris Plant Show tweets out, "This trans woman on CNN says she can look at a still photo of the Colorado Springs gunman and know that he's not non-binary. He's a man. If we were to use that same standard on Natalie, what might we discern? Which, by the way, that's hatred and bigotry, isn't it? CNN? See, a person can say that they're transitioning right away and then just go right into the girls' bathroom. Let's listen.
Natalie, when we started the show, we got a little bit of news earlier that the attorneys for the shooter are now saying that the shooter is non-binary, and the shooter would like to use the pronouns they, them, and this is for the court in all court papers, and that's what Anderson Aldrich's attorneys are saying. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I think that's complete ludicrous. I believe they're just saying that because they want to have the easy way out on this. That's really, really offending, especially being a transgender woman myself, that a male, which it was obvious with the mugshot, that's a man, that's not a non-binary person, because in no way, shape, or form could they appear as a woman the next day. It's really offensive to even hear that they're playing that role. And if they're non-binary, why would you go after the club where you feel safe at? Why would you do that to a community where you are welcomed in if you are non-binary?
Excellent question. Obviously, all of this will have to be answered.
I'm kind of triggered here. Again, I was to the understanding that you're never allowed to question that. But the culture war is going to keep going with this, and it's amazing to me that now, well, I mean, it's not really that amazing because you knew they were going to change the rules as soon as it wasn't convenient for them anymore. Let's grab one from the Daily Wire. You can't do that. Matt Walsh slams leftist media for trying to ignore Colorado shooter identifying as non-binary. Yeah, again, it comes down to the rules. Because it's not going to be rules for thee, but not for me kind of thing. We're not going to let you do that. You set the rules for these interactions. We didn't. We laughed at you for them. But you set the rules. From John Rigolizzo. Looks like there might be some video here, but the video player is broken a little bit. Let me get a refresh off of this and see. Oh, their video player doesn't seem to be operating. Which is fine. We can go and just read from it. Matt Walsh slammed the left-wing media coverage of the Colorado shooting for ignoring the mass shooter's alleged non-binary identity. Appearing on Tucker on Wednesday, Walsh slammed the left-wing media for ignoring or trying to downplay the fact that the alleged shooter identifies as non-binary. Because the left-wing media has put so much stock into transgender identity, they cannot ignore the shooter identifying as trans by their own rules and must be held to account. Well, I mean, we're all owed apologies, but I've seen these people enough to know that I'm not going to sit around and hold my breath waiting for the apology, Walsh told Carlson. I think it's just really kind of amazing to watch, especially CNN, where they immediately just deny the person's self-identity. And I think the point where we want to get across is that if you're on the left, you can't do that, okay? This is not available to you. You're not allowed to do that. By your own precedent and by your own philosophy. By the rules that you have set. And we're going to hold you to them. Now, you and I, Tucker, we're allowed to say that this mass shooter who calls himself non-binary, we're allowed to say that's nonsense. Non-binary isn't even a thing. You can't even be that, Walsh continued. But on the left, they made it clear that the only evidence that needs to be provided in order to prove that someone's non-binary is that they say it. And what they've also told us repeatedly is that the idea that someone would adopt one of these identities in a self-serving way, like, for example, convicted male felon who's in prison who all of a sudden discovers his inner female identity to speculate that maybe he's doing something so he could have access to female inmates in women's prisons. We're told that no, you can't speculate. That's an awful thing to suggest. So that's them. That's the left saying that, which means that they're stuck with us. As far as they're concerned, this person is non-binary. Now, what is he actually? I don't know. I think it's pretty clear he's just a crazy guy. That's what actually happened. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he is. And again, the big thing for me, the big thing that I like about this is we might get to the bottom of this. We might find the motive, the manifesto, the reason for this. And it might be that the guy's just out of his dang mind. But because of the fight over the pronouns, means that this has the potential. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know if it's going to. But this one has the potential to stay in here until we actually get to the bottom of the story. Speaking of Matt Walsh, from The Blaze, Twitter account suspended after menacing tweets saying Matt Walsh, Shia Reichik, and others should have to fear for their lives more. From Alex Nitzberg. A Twitter account has been suspended after suggesting that Libs of TikTok creator Shia Reichik, conservative commentator Matt Walsh, Gays Against Groomers founder Jamie Mitchell, and YouTuber Tim Pool should have to be afraid for their lives. Shia Reichik, Tim Pool, Matt Walsh, Jamie Mitchell, et al. Have been way too comfortable lately. I personally think they should have to fear for their lives more, an account with the handle Hoot Little tweeted, according to a screenshot. Libs of TikTok posted a screenshot that showed Greg Price retweeting the menacing post and asking Elon whether it's still against Twitter's terms of service to threaten people's lives. Musk responded in the affirmative, tweeting, "Yes." His hair turned blonde for a moment, and he grew a massive beard before he said that too. And there it is. Since taking over Twitter, Musk has reinstated some previously banned accounts. The most high-profile, which has been the account of former President Trump. Musk reinstated Trump's account after posting a Twitter poll. A majority of the votes in the poll supported restoring the former president's account. And, review. For what it is, it's nice to see the rules being applied equally. Because yes, that is in bad taste. But there are a lot of times where we can go back out and report a post for being outright threatening. And Twitter will send you a message back and says, "We found no violation of the rules." They do that quite a bit, actually. From the New York Post. Grand jury finds numerous instances of ballot fraud in a New York City Council race on Staten Island. Again, I was to the understanding that this never happened. There's no such thing as ballot fraud. You can never, ever fraudulently cast a ballot. From Carl Campanile. A Staten Island grand jury has identified numerous instances of ballot harvesting fraud in a race for city council last year, including ballots submitted on behalf of a dead person. Well, I was told that never happens, and signature fraud involving dozens of other absentee ballots. The unprecedented 38-page grand jury report released by the Staten Island DA Michael McMahon called for changes in the state election law, including requiring official government-issued ID to vote. But it does not specify the race in question, nor does it file criminal charges against anybody. Well, of course it doesn't. Sources told the Post that the criminal investigation focused on the campaign of Marco Kipai, who narrowly lost a GOP primary race to Mid-Island Councilman David Carr. The case is the poster child for the necessity of voter ID laws. Unfortunately, The real victims here are the hundreds of residents whose identities and votes were stolen, and this will happen again until our state legislature takes election integrity and security seriously, Carr said. The Post previously reported the accusations of ballot harvesting and other fraud allegedly committed by the Kapai campaign, including registering a dead man to vote for him as a female. Oh, so I know why this is happening. This is happening because it's in New York State, and it just happens to be a Republican that they're running it against. And again, I'm not going to stand here and say that I believe that there was a huge amount of voter fraud, or I'm not going to stand here and say that I believe that there's none altogether. What I'm saying is that I have questions. And I know that it's been proven that you are racist, even if you ask a question at this point. It's not even just about saying, yes, I know this happened, or no, I didn't. I don't know this happened. It's, you ask the question, that's racist. How can you distrust anything? You just want Republicans to win and put black people back in chains. You're a horrible person. You're a sexist. Okay, so can you answer the question or not? From The Blaze. Respect for Marriage Act will expose religious schools and nonprofits to lawsuits. Conservative think tank spends $1 million to run ads during NFL games against codifying the new bill. From Candace Hathaway. The Heritage Foundation, a conservative think tank, is spending more than $1 million to run advertisements during the Thanksgiving weekend NFL and college football games to warn Americans that the new Respect for Marriage Act will expose religious schools and nonprofits to lawsuits, Fox News Digital reported. It is the biggest campaign the Heritage Foundation has ever launched. The Respect for Marriage Act's final vote in the Senate is scheduled for Monday, which, if passed, will codify the right to same-sex marriage. The Heritage Foundation argued the bill is deceptively named because it does not give same-sex couples new rights. The foundation also warned that it would leave religious schools and nonprofits vulnerable to litigation, which could give the IRS grounds to revoke tax-exempt status from religious groups. Well, who could have seen that coming? America's religious liberty is under attack with this impending vote in the Senate, Heritage Foundation President Kevin Roberts told Fox News Digital. This legislation does not add one additional benefit to same-sex couples in the U.S. It's an attack that sets the stage to take rights away from people of faith. What it does accomplish is deputizing radical activists to target Americans who cannot in good faith endorse anything other than man and woman marriage. The American people deserve all the facts. The Heritage Foundation accused Democrats of hurrying to cram through their far-left agenda before Republicans take the majority in the House next year. Mike Lee of Utah proposed an amendment to the legislation to guarantee religious liberty protections, but Democrat lawmakers have refused to put the amendment to a vote. Which is funny because the leftoids on Twitter try to tell you that, no, they put that in there. Republican senators claiming the bill protects religious liberty are misleading the public, Roger Severino, the Heritage Foundation's vice president of domestic policy, told Fox News Digital. Their refusal to require Senator Lee's amendment is proof of their insecurity. So, this one I have not read. I read the initial draft of that, and yes, there was a lot of stuff in there about making sure that religious centers were exempt, or not exempt rather, to perform the ceremony. And again, as I've mentioned before, if you want to enter into a state contract, and that's all that I see, the marriage that's proposed by the state, if you want to enter into a state contract with whoever you want to, I don't care. I really don't. I don't care who screws who or anything else like that for the state contract. As I've mentioned, if hell freezes over and I get married at some point, I will get 2 marriage licenses. One of them will come from the state of Wisconsin, saying you have the legal authority to join your property tax, to join your income tax, and file as jointly. in an effort to show you that we want you to get married and have a bunch of kids to create the next generation. I will get that from the state of Wisconsin. And I will also get one from the Lutheran Church of the Wisconsin Evangelical Lutheran Synod that says that I religiously have permission from God to have sex with my wife. As I've reminded you, one of those two I care about. The other one I could practically rip up as soon as it gets home. So as far as the state stuff, let the religious people out of it, but I know that and that was one of the things too. One of the people's like, oh, well, no, they're putting amendments in there to make sure that religious people don't have to go and perform the weddings. Yeah, since when have people who worship the government ever tried to make a concession to their competing religion, Christianity? It doesn't happen. I will admit the latest version of this bill I have not read. But now that they're putting this out there, I'm actually curious about it, so I probably will. Probably today, because Thanksgiving alone. But that's what we see for that. Out of Georgia. Georgia Supreme Court denies Republican bid to halt early voting in the Senate runoff on Saturday. From Dare Gregorian. The Georgia Supreme Court on Wednesday denied the state Republican Party's bid to block early voting on the state's hotly contested Senate runoff from moving forward on Saturday. The brief unanimous ruling by the state's High Court upheld last week's decision by a Fulton County judge blocking a directive from Georgia's Secretary of State prohibiting counties from voting on Saturday after Thanksgiving. Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, a Republican, had argued that changes to Georgia voting law meant there could be no early voting on November 26th, the only Saturday when it would have been possible for Georgians to cast an early vote on the December 6th runoff election between Raphael Warnock and Herschel Walker. Early voting is required to be available statewide Monday through Friday of next week. The court finds the absence of the Saturday vote will irreparably harm the plaintiffs, their members, their constituents, and their preferred runoff candidate, Judge Thomas A. Cox wrote in a ruling last Friday. The state Republican Party appealed the decision, arguing it was allowing illegal advanced voting. The dispute centered on a provision of SB 202 signed by Republican Governor Brian Kemp in March of 2021, which stipulates that early in-person voting must not be held on any Saturday that follows a public or legal holiday on the preceding Thursday or Friday. Raffensperger contended that meant there could be no early in-person voting on November 26th, the Saturday following Thanksgiving. You know what's funny about that? They tried to make this all about racism and Confederacy, in spite of the fact that it's two black men on the ballot. Because somebody did some digging, and yes, now there is a law on the books, Senate Bill 202. There is a law that's out there that says, no, you can't have early voting on the Saturday after a federal holiday. But they tried to make it into, it's because it's Robert E. Lee's birthday. Why do our friends on the left know so much about the Confederacy and the races they claim to hate? It was the same thing with the Odall rune, by the way. It was the exact same thing with that. I had never ever seen an Odall rune before CPAC. I had no idea what it was. But all of our friends on the left seem to have an encyclopedic knowledge of what this thing was. It almost seems like it was planned that way. Wouldn't you say? With the outrage that came over it? So that's what we have for that. In other news, Georgia Supreme Court reinstates law allowing abortions up to 6 weeks. No author given from Fox News. The Georgia Supreme Court on Wednesday temporarily reinstated a state law that allows abortions through the first 6 weeks of pregnancy. In a one-page order issued Wednesday, the court overturned a lower court's decision to block the Georgia law. The Supreme Court's order issuing a stay in the case means the lower law is reinstated while the court considers an appeal on the merits from Georgia AG Chris Carr. Superior Court at Fulton County this month ruled the law violated the U.S. Constitution when it was enacted by the state legislature 3 years ago. It was blocked for 3 years until the Supreme Court overturned Roe in June, freeing the states to pass their own laws on abortion. Fulton County Superior Judge Robert McBurney said in his November 15th opinion that when the law was signed by Georgia Governor Brian Kemp, everywhere in America, including Georgia, it was unequivocally unconstitutional for governments, federal, state, or local, to ban abortions before viability. Carr immediately appealed to the state Supreme Court. Fox News Digital reported Wednesday that Democrats who focused on abortion for months ahead of the midterm elections failed to unseat Kemp, one of the most pro-life governors of the country. But in the Georgia Senate runoff between Herschel Walker and Raphael Warnock, the issue is still seen as a deciding factor, which I don't know why, because it's a states' rights issue. A Fox News poll from late October conducted before the election found that inflation was the top issue for Georgians at 38%, an increase from 28% in July. Among those who care about inflation, Walker was already ahead about 43 points. Abortion was the most important issue to 18% of voters, and election integrity was top of the minds to 12%, and Warnock leads both groups by at least 40 points. Well, we'll see. Who could have seen this coming? First openly trans rep in New Hampshire arrested for stalking woman twice and violating a protective order. The New Hampshire Democratic representative, Stacey Lawton, the state's first openly transgender public official, was arrested earlier this month for allegedly violating a domestic violence order by stalking an unidentified woman. Lawton, originally born Barry Charles Lawton Jr., was arrested November 12th after violating a protective order by allegedly trying to contact the victim through social media days after securing re-election in the 2022 midterms, Redux reported. Hudson Police Department said authorities arrested the 38-year-old trans representative in September for violating the same order, but he was released shortly after. Lawton did not provide comments to the media outlets. House Democrat Rep. Timothy Horrigan defended Lawton on Twitter. She's gotten into a lot of trouble over the years, and she keeps getting into trouble, but she's basically a good person, Horrigan tweeted. She's not violent or abusive or harmful to anyone other than herself. GOP Rep. Kim Rice replied to Horrigan's stance, saying Lawton needs some help. I don't think the person she was talking would feel the same way, Rice said. I am thinking that the person would definitely think that they were harmed. I'm shocked sitting in the House Judiciary you would even say this. Yeah, if we were to a point that you needed to have a restraining order, there's something going on there, and there's probably some harm being done somewhere here, so maybe we should look into this a little bit deeper, I would think. Let's see. Looks like there was an information on this. New Hampshire law prohibits convicted felons from voting or holding public office while serving jail or prison sentences. However, a person may vote or seek public office once again after authorities discharge the convicted felon, as long as they live in the district they seek to represent in congruence with the New Hampshire Constitution. Pete Silva, a Nashua Republican, told Patch that it was unfortunate that Lofton refused to come clean with the voters of his district during the election process. So, yeah. There's a little bit of problem here, and, again, it's maybe not politically correct to say mental illness, but, there's usually something going on in the head at that point. All right, this is from the Hill blog briefing room. Barr warns Trump will burn the whole House down and calls for a new GOP leader. Well, that's kind of what we were looking for. Someone to burn the House down. From Julia Shapiro. Former AG Bill Barr on Monday called for a new leader of the Republican Party, warning in a blistering rebuke that former President Trump will burn the whole House down. Based? Unless the rest of the party goes along with him, he will burn the whole House down, leading his people out of the GOP, Barr said in a scathing op-ed published in the New York Post on Monday. Look, Trump's willingness to destroy the party if he does not get his way is not based on principle, but on his own supreme narcissism, he added. His egoism makes him unable to think of a political party as anything but an extension of himself, a cult of personality. Barr's comments follow the 2022 midterm elections, where Republicans were expected to see a red wave in the House, taking control of the chamber by a wide margin. Some polls before the midterms also showed that Republicans had a good chance of capturing the Senate. Honk honk. However, Democrats kept control of the Senate, and while the GOP did gain control of the House, the final margin was significantly smaller than anticipated. Several high-profile candidates who were endorsed by Trump, including Blake Masters and Mehmet Oz, lost to their Democratic opponents. Well, Oz, that's probably a good thing. Not that Fetterwoman is much better, but Oz, that's probably a good thing. Barr has become a frequent critic of his former boss since leaving the Trump admin in December of 2020. He resigned as AG after contradicting Trump's unsupported claims of widespread election fraud in the 2020 election. Barr also separated himself from Trump and the rest of the GOP on the subject of the Mar-a-Lago documents case. And a lot of this sounds like sour grapes. It really does. But also, yeah, we need a change. We really did. What did we have otherwise? If we didn't have the Trumpism, what would the Republican Party be if we'd have gone down the road of Bush? Well, they'd still be standing back and saying, okay, just don't call me a racist. They'd still be terrified of losing jobs and opportunities. Anytime somebody decided that they had a problem with something that that person said online. And we would still be paying lip service to evangelo-conservatism. All the while looking down the barrel of another major war. Do you think we would have stayed out of Ukraine this long if the old war pigs were still in control of the GOP? Or do you think that our boys, our sons and daughters, the sons and daughters of the poor, would be standing in the front lines? And in fact, with this on top of everything else, the Democrats who were laundering money through Ukraine would have Republicans to blame the war on. Hey man, it's not my fault here. Jeb here, he put people up on the front line, and we'd be getting new songs from System of a Down. We'd be getting a new reiteration of, why don't presidents fight the war? Why do they always send the poor? Randy, price of admission for this episode of Contemporaries to tell us what you're thankful for. So please do put that in the chat. So yeah, I think it's a good thing that they're going to burn it down. Here's an interesting one, and a question, by the way, that constantly comes up. It came up when Scott Walker ran for president in Wisconsin. Apparently, Florida has a provision. A specific provision disallowing a person to both be the governor and run for another office. Wisconsin does not, by the way. Florida lawmakers explored changing a unique law to allow Governor DeSantis to run for president without resigning as governor. I am thankful for my crazy kids who are destroying my house as we speak. Well, leave the foundation. Florida Republicans want to change a Florida law that would force Governor DeSantis to resign from office if he campaigned for president. Florida law requires that elected officials tender an irrevocable resignation if they seek another office, the term of which would overlap with the term of their current office. No person may qualify as a candidate for more than one public office, whether federal, state, district, county, or municipal, if the terms or any part thereof run concurrently with each other, the law explains. No officer may qualify as a candidate for another state, district, county, or municipal public office if the terms or any part thereof run concurrently with each other without resigning from the office he or she presently holds. The resignation is irrevocable. Florida Republicans are openly saying the law should be changed so that it does not impact DeSantis. Florida State House Speaker Paul Renner and the State Senate President Kathleen Passidomo believe it's a good idea to ensure that if DeSantis campaigns for president, he will not be forced to resign as governor, Politico reported. If an individual who is Florida governor is running for president, I think he should be allowed to do it. Passidomo said, I really do. That's a big honor and privilege, so it's a good idea. Moreover, Renner said he believes the law should be changed because Florida lawmakers have been inconsistent about the Sunshine State's resign to run statute. You will find me to always try to hone towards being principled and consistent, Renner said. This is one area, going back in history, you don't have to go very far on kind of a 2-second Google search. We've been totally inconsistent on. If you think that's based on anything in your hypothetical, you would be right. And I'll be very open and transparent about that. The law was last changed in 2008 to allow then Governor Charlie Crist to potentially seek the vice presidency as John McCain's running mate. That, of course, never happened because McCain chose then Alaska Governor Sarah Palin. Florida lawmakers again changed the law in 2018, restoring the resign to run provision. Okay. I do think that you should be forced to renounce your office if you are seeking a higher office. For one simple reason. And now, again, I know a lot of people that watch this program and watch the replay are DeSantis stans. And I'm not doing this because I dislike DeSantis. Well, I dislike DeSantis, but that's not my reasoning behind this. And this does go back to when Scott Walker was running for president as well. See, the thing with me is that if you have committed to doing your job, you should do your job. And I don't mind you seeking for a higher office, but in the time when you're campaigning, in the time when you're out there giving stump speeches and going all across the country to go make the case for why you should be the nominee or the president, you have people in Florida who don't have their representation, their executives. They don't have that person who can go in and sign the bill or take an EO if necessary, which we know that Ron DeSantis loves to do those. And I had the same criticism in Wisconsin too, by the way, under Scott Walker. I did agree with the leftoids on that when they started screaming and screeching. And it was a big production when Walker ran for president. Because even before they did that, when he was first talking about that, all the Facebook comments were, oh, well, why would you vote for Scott Walker? Because Scott Walker can't commit to 4 years as governor. Why would you commit to him? He's horrible. He's gonna come in here, he's gonna use you for power, and then he's gonna go run for president. And you're actually absolutely right. If you want to better yourself, that's fine. I'm doing it right now, work-wise. I'm bettering myself. But in order to do so, I did not allow my regular duties that kept me fed to stop. I didn't forsake my regular duties in order to go improve my life. I worked through. I did contemporary every day. I did cut back on the Ed's World Gaming a little bit, but, it was on Monday nights, and you guys did understand. But, I did contemporary every day, and then I got up and I went to my other job every single day. Because I could do both at the same time. But, in a worldwide tour, in a national tour, to run for the presidency, I don't see how you could govern a state at the same time. So, my disdain for Ron DeSantis aside, I still think that, yes, the idiot leftoids are right on that one. Got some honking for this decision 2022. Lisa Murkowski wins re-election in Alaska, fending off Trump-backed challenger Kelly Tshibaka. Murkowski, one of only 7 Republicans who voted to convict Trump in his second impeachment trial, emerged victorious after the race went to a ranked choice runoff. Honk honk. From Henry J. Gomez. Lisa Murkowski has won re-election in Alaska. Honk honk. NBC News projected on Wednesday, dealing former President Trump another loss in what has largely been a miserable midterm cycle for his hand-picked candidates in competitive Senate races. Murkowski, one of only 7 Republicans who voted to convict Trump in his second impeachment trial, survived a challenge from Trump-endorsed Kelly Tshibaka, a former Alaska Department of Admin commissioner. I'm honored that Alaskans of all regions, backgrounds, and party affiliations have once again granted me their confidence to continue working with them and on their behalf in the U.S. Senate, Murkowski tweeted Wednesday. I look forward to continuing the importance of important work ahead of us. Honk, honk. And by the way, Tshibaka was way ahead at some point here, so I have questions about this one. And this is the one that McConnell dumped all kinds of dollar bills into. Chinese drones over D.C. raise security spying fears. Report from the New York Post's Caitlin Dornbos. Chinese-made drones have breached restricted airspace above the nation's capital hundreds of times in recent months, presenting both a possible security threat and means for foreign adversaries to spy on sensitive U.S. locations, Politico reported on Wednesday. The recreational drones manufactured by the Shenzhen-based company DJI are created with geofencing technology meant to prevent them from buzzing through no-fly zones. However, some users have retooled the devices to work around that restriction, according to the outlet. A simple search on YouTube leads to dozens of videos teaching how to overcome geofencing. Several claim it can be done legally, but flying through FAA-defined restricted zones violates the law. Federal officials and tech experts have briefed the Senate Homeland Security, Commerce, and Intelligence Committees in classified settings on the recent flyovers, which reportedly included hundreds of incursions over the Capitol, Pentagon, and White House, Politico said, citing anonymous government officials, lawmakers, and contractors. Officials told Politico they did not suspect that Beijing directed the flyovers, but the trend of using commercial drones in banned zones opens the opportunity for bad actors to use such strategies for espionage. For example, officials worried that China and other adversaries could hack into privately owned drones and are innocently flown in restricted areas, using the images of secure locations to their benefit. Anything that's technological has the capability of having embedded in the software or the actual hardware vulnerabilities that can be exploited at any given moment, said Marco Rubio of Florida. The trend of personal drone use in restricted areas dates back to the early days of commercially accessible aircraft. In 2015, a man crashed a personal drone into the White House, sparking a security scare and temporary lockdowns of the building and grounds. A government official said the man told the Secret Service he was using the drone recreationally and didn't mean to fly it over the White House. The FAA requires drone users to request a waiver to fly anywhere within a 30-mile radius of Ronald Reagan National Airport in Northern Virginia, an exclusion zone that covers the National Capital Region. So, basically it says that you can't fly a drone in DC. Which, I mean, is understandable. But I think the title is misleading as well because, well, yes, it could be Chinese espionage that's using embedded software in the drone. It's probably not. Unless there's something specifically they're looking for, it's probably just some kid who wants to take his camera up and get a cool shot of the Capitol building. You know, much like the one that's in the video down in the corner. Just kind of get an up and over, panned out or panned in shot of what's up there. And go show his friends. So, but hey, leave it to the Senate to freak out. Alright, we got just a couple more, then we'll do a thing that I like and a couple things that I hate. From Just the News, Musk confirms Twitter censors only targeted conservatives. From Ben Whedon. Twitter owner Elon Musk confirmed this week that the social media platform's prior operators had used censorship policies as a vehicle to deplatform only conservative viewpoints. Conservative activist Dinesh D'Souza had addressed recent headlines announcing the return of prominent right-wing accounts on the platform. He asserted that the absence of comparable stories involving left-wing figures being reinstated confirmed that the platform had disfavored conservative positions. We don't hear much about Democrats and leftists being let back on Twitter. Why? He asked. Because they were never kicked off in the first place. Their lies and misinformation simply escaped all scrutiny. Censorship has been deployed as a one-way operation against conservatives. D'Souza tagged Musk in a post prompting him to succinctly reply, "Correct." Prior to his purchase of the platform, Musk had vowed to curtail Twitter's censorship of conservative viewpoints and reinstate the accounts of banned individuals, including the former president. The 45th personal account was reinstated earlier this month. But, you see, we all knew that. We all knew that everywhere, and, you know, our friends over to the other side will accuse Facebook of doing the same thing to left-wing commentary, only allowing right-wing, but, you know, that's not really the case either. Alright, and the last one, before we get into thing that I like and thing that I hate, and thing that I like today, I'm glad Randy's here because I know that he's into mobile gaming, and that's one little thing that he and I do share. From Insider. In a lawsuit between Ghislaine Maxwell and Virginia Giuffre, judge unseals names of anonymous John Does. That's right, it appears that we are going to get the names because, you know, you can't sex traffic anybody. You can't sex traffic kids to nobody. I have no author given on this one. A judge agreed to make public the names of several John Does who tried to keep their identity secret in the long-running litigation between Ghislaine Maxwell and Virginia Giuffre, an Epstein victim. One of them, however, identified as John Doe 183 in court filings, will remain anonymous despite being the subject of an intense media coverage and was repeatedly named in Maxwell's sex trafficking trial. Loretta A. Preska, the semi-retired federal judge overseeing the case, said in a court hearing on Friday that John Doe 183's name ought to be made public, but that she would stay her own ruling to permit the person to pursue an appeal. That Doe's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein has been a subject of intense media coverage, and Doe 183's name has appeared in numerous places in unsealed portions of Miss Maxwell's criminal trial transcript, Preska said in the Friday hearing. In the court's view, there's no reason to redact Doe 183 from the documents. Well, it's something. Again, I want to see who all was tied up in this, but I doubt that we're ever going to. Ever. I want to see who was responsible, who was doing this, who wasn't doing this. Who's in our government? Who's running our billion-dollar businesses? Who are all using the services of this dude? Because again, you can't sex traffic to nobody. It just don't work. So, I'm happy for this. Maybe we'll start to get some answers, and if this guy's name gets released, maybe he'll start flipping on some other people that he knows about. We shall see. Alright, let's do a thing that I like and a couple things that I hate, and we'll head out of here for the day. Thing that I like. Sometimes we talk about what I'm watching on TV, or on the Fire Stick rather, because I don't watch network TV, because I don't feel like paying for it. Sometimes we talk about music, and sometimes we talk about the video games that I've been playing. And sometimes it's actually a news story that I like. But this time, I'm going down the mobile gaming route. And I went through the other day and downloaded one of my favorite mobile games. And it's a time suck, I will admit that. It is a huge time suck. But it's probably one of the better ones that was put out there. And one of the things I like about it, and I do tend to drift towards games where they don't just throw an advertisement at you at every single moment that you step forward. And I like Diggy's Adventure because they have advertising and pay-for-play kind of stuff, but it's totally optional. Diggy's Adventure from Pixel Federation follows an Egyptologist and his son, a miner. As they go through, they have several locations now because they keep adding more, through Egypt, Scandinavia, Atlantis, and even Mars at this point they've added to their thing. I could best describe it as a maze game. The object is that your character, Diggy, goes through and digs out tiles. They put out special events all the time too. Digs out tiles with a certain amount of energy on it, and you get as far as you can, digging them out as they go. It is a lot of fun. The artwork, there's new artwork for it, is it's a little bit different. They've changed it significantly since I started playing, but it's definitely one where you can sit down and not even realize that in 25 minutes or an hour, like, I had to stop playing it for a while because at some point I could go for an hour and not even realize an hour had passed. And I don't really have an hour to give up throughout the day. But 20 minutes here and there I can usually do. So let's watch the trailer for Diggy's Adventure. And see if that's something that you guys would enjoy. Oh, gotta kill the music. And there you go. It's available Apple, Android. It's actually available on PC. I've played it on PC before. It's kind of fun, but again, when you're playing on mobile, it's something that you can, if you're waiting for a bus or something or an appointment, you can just pull out and knock out a few tiles. But it's definitely a lot of fun. If you haven't checked it out, give it a try. See if it's something that you would like. And now for a couple things that I hate. Thing that I hate number 1. Firefighters dump thousands of gallons of water battling a blaze as Tesla burns to smithereens. That's right. As much as our friends to the left are trying to get us all into electric vehicles, as much as they're trying to get us out of our gas vehicles, as much as they are trying to change the way that we do things, we still have problems with the technology that have yet to be solved. And the Tesla, the lithium batteries, are one of those situations. Because you can't fight the fires if something does go wrong in them, and hopefully it's very rare that something does go wrong, but just look at how black that smoke is coming out of that Tesla too. That's both leather coming off the seats and the batteries going up, the chemicals in the batteries that run that. I don't begrudge anybody who wants to go out and buy an electric vehicle. If you want it, go buy it. I don't think the government should be involved in that. I don't think I should be involved in that decision, but it should go the other way too. The government shouldn't be telling me that I have to get rid of my gas-powered pickup truck and go get a Tesla. Go get a Nissan Leaf or something like that. You have no place to tell me that. But you do accept, in both cases, the inherent risk for me, the cost of fuel and my pickup truck. For the Tesla owner, the possibility that if something does go wrong, you'll either be paying more than what you paid for the car to replace the batteries, or if, God forbid, worst comes to worst happens, I mean, you sit here and run a fire like this. Firefighters recently ran through thousands of gallons of water as Tesla electric car burned in the state of Pennsylvania earlier this week. Morris Township Volunteer Fire Company number 1 posted photos of the inferno and the aftermath, noting that around 12,000 gallons of water were used. In total, approximately 12,000 gallons of water was utilized. To give you an idea of the severity, crews can normally extinguish a fully involved vehicle fire with approximately 500 gallons or less. The fire company said in a Facebook post, due to the lithium-ion batteries on the vehicle, extinguishing this fire would require an additional tankers, as the vehicle would continue to reignite and burn fierce at times. In total, it took crews nearly 2 hours of continually applying water on the vehicle as the battery would begin to reignite and hold high temperatures. The post noted, "This vehicle burnt so hot and long that if it was not for the rims, you might not even know it was a vehicle." Oh, that's horrible. And then we can look at ABC 27 in just a minute. Other fire companies were also involved in the response. Ron, we have a price of admission for today's episode, in which you do have to tell us what it is you're thankful for before we head out of here for the day. Welcome in. Happy Thanksgiving. Let's see. Multiple tankers were requested to keep the batteries cool after the fire was extinguished. A large amount of water is needed for this type of fire to ensure the batteries stay cool and do not reignite, the Columbia Volunteer Fire Company noted on Facebook. WTAJ reported that the couple that have been in the Tesla Model S were not harmed. Thankfulness. The outlet reported that, according to the couple's daughter, there had been debris in the road. The outlet said the vehicle began smoking after the debris got beneath the car, and after the people had exited the vehicle, it caught fire. The couple and their dog were unscathed. Thank God for small miracles. Let's look at this, and I want to see if I can find another video, because I know that they're going to be doing the reporting with it.
In Clearfield County, a Tesla caught on fire on I-80 yesterday. Look at that. The driver hit a large piece of debris on the road and the car started smoking. Once the couple inside and their dog got out, that vehicle burst into flames. The car's lithium battery burned so hot, it took 2 hours to put it out.
That's the one we just watched. I think I've got another one here. No, this is another one where they're just showing photos of it.
The driver was driving it just 3 days after delivery. The driver's attorney says the driver was initially not able to get out of the car as the locks malfunctioned, and he had to force his way to the door, through the door, to escape. According to the Lower Merion Fire Department in Pennsylvania, copious amounts of water were poured on the vehicle for over 2 hours in order to extinguish the fire and render the scene safe. We've reached out for comment from Tesla, have not heard back. The driver's attorney, Mark Garagos, was supposed to join us to discuss all this. But
that one's from a year ago, but they're saying the same thing. It just takes this ridiculous amount of water to put the fire out on that because, I mean, it is. Lithium ion burns, and it burns hot and it burns bright. So, that's what we have for that. And thing that I hate number 2. Interesting that we use this on Thanksgiving when a lot of us are going to be eating turkey. Maybe we might actually be able to see this because it doesn't look like it's going to load. Oh, there it goes. The FDA has approved lab-grown meat for the first time. From Kate Gibson. For the first time, the FDA is giving the green light to meat grown in a laboratory. The agency said in a notice on Wednesday that a cultivated chicken product made by Upside Foods is safe to eat. The FDA evaluated the information submitted to the agency and has no further questions at this time about the firm's safety conclusion, the agency stated. This is a watershed moment in the history of food, Uma Valetti, CEO and founder of Berkeley, California-based company, said in a statement. U.S. consumers will soon have the chance to eat delicious meat that's been grown directly from animal cells. As opposed to what? Because all meat that you eat is grown from animal cells. The cells from a single chicken allow for the cultivation of the same amount of poultry that now comes from hundreds of thousands of farmed birds, according to his company. Although the agency found Upside Foods as chicken safe to eat, the product is not approved to be sold. Upside's remaining hurdles before it can take its product to the market involve the U.S. Department of Agriculture and its Food Safety Inspection Service. Which, by the way, the Department of Agriculture is probably going to shut this down. Vested interest, you know. As this product comes closer to entering the U.S. market, we are closely coordinating with the USDA FSIS to ensure it's properly regulated and labeled, the FDA said. Valetti, a cardiologist starting Upside in 2015 after coming up with the idea for what's now called cultivated meat while working at the Mayo Clinic growing human heart cells in a lab. He recently told NPR scientists can take cells from an animal with a needle biopsy, feed them nutrients to proliferate and produce meat. He resonated. Yeah, you can also take cells from an animal, and feed it corn and produce meat. Once given the regulatory approval to sell its cultivated products, including a chicken fillet, Upside's production facility in Emeryville, California, will be able to produce more than 50,000 pounds a year, according to the company. Scientists say roughly a third of all human-produced greenhouse gases stem from food production, especially cattle. Proponents of lab-grown meat say it would help cut back on methane emissions and help combat global warming. All right, I do have a couple questions about this. My first big question here is that beef cattle, chicken, turkeys, pigs reproduce fast enough that they are a sustainable food source to a population of 8 billion people on this planet. They never go away. By all rights, with the amount of chicken that we eat in this world alone, except for the fact that chickens reproduce so damn fast, we produce enough chicken to keep it up. They reproduce fast enough that we can continue to have chicken for years and years to come. The same with pigs, the same with cows. So what do you think is going to happen to these animal populations at the point where they're no longer being harvested and allowing to reproduce wild? That's side number one, especially if they produce such horrible methane gas. But my next question here is, what's the difference? Oh, we go ahead and we feed these cells that we're growing in a petri dish. Okay, again, you feed the animal while it's walking around, and corn is probably a lot cheaper than whatever synthetic nutrient that you're putting into these things. you want to eat meat, eat the meat. If you don't want to eat the meat, then don't eat the meat. You can make a nice savory mushroom burger if that's your thing, or a lentil burger, actual garden veggie patties. I wouldn't suggest eating Beyond Meat because they're having major problems with mold in all their factories, but you know, you can make veggie burgers of your own, or you can buy the old Boca stuff. That never had big USDA problems. It tasted like cardboard, but it's there, it's available. I don't know, dude. This whole thing, playing God with meat and everything else like that, I don't know. Yeah, I'm sure that those other ones won't have any CO2 emissions, you know, given the fact that animal cells respirate CO2 back out. Eat the chicken. It's good for you. Eat the turkey. Eat the beef. I think a lot of people that are advocating for this need a lot more beef in their life. Alright. Well, I'm going to get out of here before I say something I regret. I don't have a YouTube channel anymore. Alright. Let's get the outro music up here and let's go. Alright, so we're actually done. We're caught up with everything. So whatever we pick up for tomorrow, which today's going to be a slow news day, I guarantee as well, will be enough to finish up. And then, yes, reminder, we'll be off for 2 weeks, and in 2 weeks we will have a brand new contemporary schedule. Definitely looking forward to that, coming back in and welcoming in a West Coast audience. I do hope that most of you on the Eastern 2 time zones can still stay with me, but also welcome in our new friends from the Mountain Time Zone in the West, because, you know, if you're on Pacific Time at 7:30, you know, you've probably got other things going on at 5:30 in the morning, if you're even up at that point. So definitely looking forward to that. Looking forward to seeing you guys back here tomorrow for live chat, for conversation, and seeing what it is that you guys have to say. We will see you then. Looking forward to seeing it. I hope you enjoy your Thanksgiving. I will be doing a video game marathon because, well, just because of the fact that I'm moving in a few days means that I didn't decide to go across the state to be with family today, because I'm going to be with them now for, well, within an hour and a half of them for hopefully the rest of time. So we've got that. We will see you here next time for more news, more contemporary. And until then, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.